She was 16 years old, sitting alone in Burleson, Texas, writing a song about a father who hadn't technically left, he just stopped being there. She called it Because of You. She had no idea, none, that she wasn't writing about her past. She was writing about her entire future. The exact same wound, twice more. Before she turned 40. I said this months ago, and I'll say it again right now. The most successful people on earth are not the ones who avoid pain. They're the ones who finally, after years of getting burned by it, learn to see it coming. This is Kelly Clarkson's story. And it is not the story you think it is. Her parents divorced when she was 6. Her father didn't disappear all at once. That would have almost been easier. He faded. Slowly, the way divorce sometimes lets a parent do, present enough on paper, absent enough in every way that actually matters. A child doesn't have a word for that kind of loss. It's not death. There's no funeral, no closure, just a slow withdrawal you spend years trying to name. So, she wrote a song about it instead. She thought she was writing about her childhood. She was actually writing a prophecy. Fast forward. Attica Records. 2003, Kelly Clarkson is 21 years old, reigning champion of the very first season of American Idol. She's sitting across from Clive Davis, one of the most powerful men in the music industry, and he's telling her, directly to her face, the label does not believe in her song. The song is Since You've Been Gone. Davis wants something safer, something that fits the mold of what an Idol winner is supposed to sound like. She pushes back. Because this isn't the first fight. It won't be the last. She's already spent months resisting RCI's instinct to turn her into a manufactured pop product when what she actually is, underneath all of it, is a rock-leaning singer-songwriter with something real to say. She wins this fight. Since You've Been Gone gets released. It becomes one of the defining singles of the decade. It wins her a Grammy. It proves retroactively, undeniably, that her instincts were right all along. But notice what had to happen first. A 21-year-old, already the most famous new artist in the country, still had to sit in a room and convince a room full of executives that her own song, her own voice, deserved to exist. Hold on to that detail, because it's going to matter again. Twice more, actually, before this story is over. But here's the part nobody talks about. The fight itself was the real story. Having to fight repeatedly, exhaustingly for material that already had her name on it, her voice on it, her life inside it, that told her something she wouldn't fully say out loud for over a decade. Winning American Idol hadn't given her ownership of her own career. It had given her an arranged marriage. Let's go back further. Because this story doesn't start in a recording booth. It starts in Fort Worth, Texas. Kelly Brianne Clarkson, born April 24, 1982, the youngest of 3 kids. Her mother, Jean, a first-grade teacher. Her father, Stephen, an engineer. When the divorce hit, the family didn't just split. It scattered. Her brother went to live with their father. Her sister went to live with an aunt. Kelly stayed with her mom in Burleson, 3 kids, 3 different households, almost overnight. Imagine that for a second. One family, torn into 3 separate lives in a single year. She found her voice at 8 years old inside a church in Fort Worth. She's described the feeling as overwhelming, hearing the congregation sing and wanting immediately to feel whatever they were feeling. And more than that, to be able to make other people feel it too. Think about that for a second. An 8-year-old in a pew, already understanding something most adults never figure out, that a voice can move people, that it can reach inside someone and rearrange what they're feeling in real time. A 7th-grade choir teacher heard her singing in a hallway, pulled her straight into the choir. First time anyone outside her own bedroom had heard what she could do. Her biggest influence? Aretha Franklin. Not an accident. Aretha didn't just sing pretty. Aretha sang pain out loud in front of everyone like it was nothing to hide. Kelly wanted that same rawness, and at 16 she found it. Because of You wasn't a vague teenage diary entry, it was precise, clinical, almost a direct attempt to name something she'd been carrying silently for an entire decade. The damage of watching someone you trust become unreliable, untrustworthy, slowly absent, in ways that would shape how she trusted anyone, for the rest of her life. Here's a question for you, and I want you to actually sit with it for a second. Have you ever said something true about your own pain long before you had any idea that exact same pain was coming back around for round two? That's what's buried inside that song. A teenager naming a wound from her childhood that would, without her knowing it, describe losses still waiting for her years down the road. She turned down full scholarships. University of Texas, University of North Texas, Berklee College of Music, walked away from all of it. 3 real, fully funded paths to a stable, conventional future. Gone, by choice. Moved to Los Angeles right after high school, in 2000, because she was certain enough about her own instincts that college simply didn't compete with the urgency she felt. And Los Angeles humbled her. Fast, she worked as a background extra Sabrina, the teenage witch. Dharma and Greg, standing in the background of other people's shows, other people's stories. Nobody in that room had any idea what she could actually do. Recorded a few demos with songwriter Jerry Goffin that went nowhere. Turned down 2 record deals, Jive and Interscope, because she could sense, correctly, exactly what they wanted to turn her into. A bubblegum act. Disposable. Pre-packaged. 2 real offers. Real money. Real exposure. And she said no to both of them, on instinct alone, with nothing lined up behind her if she was wrong. They would have completely pigeonholed me, she said later. I was confident enough that something better would come along. That's either reckless or visionary. Depends entirely on what happens next. Then a fire tore through her apartment. Everything she owned. Gone. In one night. And with no income and nothing left, she went back to Texas. Papa John's. Subway, a movie theater. She even sold vacuum cleaners door to door. Picture that. A future Grammy winner standing on a stranger's porch, trying to convince them they need a new vacuum. Her own summary of that chapter? One word. It sucked. A friend told her about a new TV talent competition. She auditioned. Won the very first season of American Idol, outright 58% of the vote, against runner-up Justin Guarini. 20 years old. Selling vacuum cleaners 1 year, the most watched new face in America the next. Nobody prepares you for that kind of whiplash. Not really. 1 month she's working a register at a movie theater in Texas. The next, she's standing on a stage in front of tens of millions of people, and a panel of judges is telling the entire country that she's the best singer they've heard all season. There's no transition period, no on-ramp, just an immediate, total inversion of her entire life. And almost nobody, in that moment, sat her down and explained what came next. Her prize? A recording contract with RCA Records. And that's where this story splits, because the prize itself becomes the next trap. She was contractually obligated to star in From Justin to Kelly, a film she has openly said she disliked. A film that made back less than half its budget. Think about what that actually requires. Winning the biggest competition in America and having your literal next move dictated by people who saw you mainly as a marketing opportunity attached to a runner-up nobody particularly remembers. She still gets people sending her that script today. She says she's shocked anyone still does it. That's not a throwaway joke. That's a woman, 2 decades later, still occasionally bumping into the evidence of how little control she actually had right at the start of all of this. She fought Ircia again and again, pushing toward rock-leaning, personal material. Meeting after meeting. Executives who'd never written a song in their lives telling a Grammy-caliber vocalist what her own voice should sound like. That fight produced Breakaway in 2004. 10 million copies sold worldwide. Proof, real, commercial, undeniable proof that her instincts had been right the entire time. Here's what makes that proof so loaded, though. It didn't end the fighting. It just gave her better ammunition for the next fight, and the one after that, and the one after that. Winning didn't get her out of the room. It just meant she kept getting invited back into the same room, over and over, for the next decade. And yet, I've sold more than 15 million records worldwide, she said, years later, and still nobody listens to what I have to say. Read that again. 15 million records. And still fighting to be heard about her own work. When she finally walked away from RCA in 2016 and signed with Atlantic, she put it in a press release, in words that landed with real precision. After winning American Idol, there was an arranged marriage that occurred that sometimes worked out, and sometimes resulted in the hardest experiences of my life. She even refused songwriting credit on one of her biggest hits, My Life Would Suck Without You, as a direct protest against being forced to work with a producer she'd already said no to. That decision may have cost her millions in royalties. Think about what that actually means. Money she could have collected quietly for the rest of her career every single time that song plays on the radio, in a store, at a wedding, forever. She walked away from all of it, on purpose, over a single point of principle most artists would have quietly swallowed. She made it anyway. On principle. If you've ever stayed somewhere, or worked with someone, purely on principle, even when it cost you, drop a comment right now. I want to hear that story. Now here's the open loop I want you to hold on to, because everyone remembers Kelly Clarkson, the talk show host. Warm, relentlessly likable. Breaking into spontaneous song covers. Hugging every single guest like an old friend. The Kelly Clarkson Show, one of the most successful daytime programs of the last decade. An Emmy in its very first season. That version is real. It is also not the whole picture. Because underneath the warmth was a marriage that mirrored everything she'd already lived through once before she marries Brandon Blackstock. A talent manager. The son of her own former manager. Remember that detail I asked you to hold on to 2 acts ago? The one about having to fight a room full of executives just to be heard about her own music? Here it comes again. Different room. Different year. Same shape. Because for the next 7 years, Brandon isn't just her husband, he's also managing her career. The personal and the professional tangled together exactly the way her ARCA years had already taught her was dangerous. Except this time, it's not a record label sitting across the table from her. It's the man she goes home to every single night. They wed at Blackberry Farm, Tennessee, October 2013. Daughter River Rose, born 2014. Son Remington, born 2016. From the outside, a stable, blended family, his 2 kids from a previous marriage included. Pictures, holidays, the whole picture you'd expect. From the inside, we're about to find out. June 2020. She files for divorce. Irreconcilable differences. 2 words doing a lot of quiet, heavy lifting. The collapse of that marriage became, by her own account, the direct inspiration for her 9th studio album. She told Today it might be the most personal record she's ever made. Every emotion you experience, she said, from the beginning of a relationship to the end of what it is now. She called the process therapeutic. Writing through it instead of around it. The same instinct she had at 16 in Burleson, with a guitar and a wound she didn't have a name for yet. Except this time, she had the language. She had the studio. She had 2 decades of practice turning pain into something other people could actually use. It also played out under brutal public scrutiny, financial disputes, custody disputes, years of legal filings, all of it public record. She was eventually granted primary custody of both kids. The divorce finalized in 2021. A year and a half of contentious negotiation to get there. A year and a half of lawyers. Filings, numbers, neither of them wanted made public. Made public anyway. And here's the detail that matters most. She's spoken about how impossible it became to separate her husband's judgment from her manager's judgment because they were the same person. Think about what that actually means, practically, day to day. Every disagreement about money could also be a disagreement about her career. Every decision about the kid's schedule could also touch a contract, a tour date, a deal he had negotiated on her behalf. There was no clean line between husband and manager. There never had been. When the marriage ended, she wasn't just untangling a relationship. She was untangling years of overlapping business and financial arrangements that a normal divorce never has to touch. Most people getting divorced lose a partner. She had to simultaneously fire her manager, audit her own finances, and renegotiate who controlled access to the career she'd spent 2 decades building, all while raising 2 kids through it, all in public. So here's the central irony. Sit with this for a second. A girl writes a song at 16 about a parent who disappeared on her slowly, quietly, disguised as distance. That same woman spends her entire adult life running straight into the same pattern, dressed up in new clothes, over and over again. A record label that controls her work disguised as opportunity. A husband who controls her business disguised as partnership. Childhood, contract, marriage, 3 completely different settings. 3 completely different sets of people. The exact same architecture underneath all of it. Someone she trusted holding more power over her life than she fully realized until the moment it broke. And she could finally see the whole shape of it all at once. And each time she got a little faster at recognizing it. Until she finally had the power, the resources, and the self-knowledge to refuse it for good. Here's what she's built underneath all of that. Over 25 million albums sold. 45 million singles. The only artist in history to top Billboard's pop, adult contemporary, adult pop, country, and dance charts, all 5. Stop and actually consider that for a second. 5 completely different chart formats. 5 completely different audiences. Nobody else in the history of the format has done that. Multiple Grammys. An Emmy for the talk show. Coaching chair on The Voice. Children's books with her name on them. A Las Vegas residency that sells out year after year to crowds who grew up on Since You've Been Gone and are now bringing their own kids to hear it live. Think about the actual distance covered there. From a girl who got rejected by 2 record labels for being too much or not enough of whatever they wanted, to a woman whose own name on a Vegas marquee is the entire selling point. And through all of it, she said the same thing over and over in interview after interview. She never actually wanted to be a star. She said, plainly, she couldn't care less about fame. She wanted to sing. She wanted to write. Everything else? Just a tool or an obstacle, depending on the year. In 2026, she's still hosting the talk show, still running a Las Vegas residency, still releasing new music more than 2 decades after that first Idol win. She has primary custody of her 2 kids. She said candidly that she's in no rush to date again, not while her current family life feels this settled, this hers. And she's still writing from the exact same place she always has. Her own life. Nobody else's idea of what a pop star is supposed to sound like. Here's something worth noticing about how she runs that talk show, too. Every single day, she sits across from a guest, and within about 90 seconds, she's not interviewing them anymore. She's just talking to them. Like an old friend who happens to have cameras around. People who've worked with her say it isn't a performance. It's just what happens when someone has spent 2 decades learning, the hard way, what real attention actually feels like, and decides to give that to everyone she meets, because for so long, almost nobody gave it to her. That's not a small thing. That's a woman who turned her own wound into the exact opposite instinct. If you've ever turned your own worst chapter into the thing you're now best at, I want to hear about that. Drop it below. So let's close that open loop. Remember the girl at 16, writing about a father she barely knew anymore? She grew into a woman who could name precisely what an arranged marriage with a record label actually felt like. And she became someone who could recognize that exact same pattern years later inside her own real marriage, and choose decisively to end it, instead of quietly absorbing the cost. The way she had to as a child, with 0 power to do anything else. That's the whole story. Not American Idol, not chart records, not even the divorce. It's about learning, decade after decade, to recognize control when it's disguised as opportunity, when it's disguised as partnership, when it's disguised as love. And here's the thing that actually gets me about her story. The more I sit with it, most people who go through what she went through as a kid, that slow, confusing fade of a parent who's technically still there, spend their whole adult lives unconsciously repeating it. Choosing partners who do the exact same slow fade. Choosing jobs, situations, relationships that quietly recreate the original wound over and over without ever knowing why. She didn't fully escape that pattern either, not at first. The label proved that. The marriage proved that, even harder. But each time, the gap closed a little. 6 years old, completely powerless, no language for what was happening. 21 years old, some power, some language, still not enough to walk away clean. 38 years old, finally enough of both to actually leave. That's not a fairy tale ending. That's just what it looks like when someone does the slow and glamorous work of actually learning from their own life instead of just surviving it. So here's my question for you, and I actually want an answer in the comments. What pattern have you been quietly repeating across different relationships, different chapters of your own life that you might finally have the power to name and refuse, now that you can see it clearly? That question isn't really about Kelly Clarkson. It's about every version of control that has ever shown up in your life wearing the mask of care. If this story hit you somewhere real, hit like right now, it costs you nothing. And it puts this in front of someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe if you want more of these real stories about people who finally learn to name the pattern and refuse it. And before you go, tell me the one thing from this story you're taking with you. I read every comment. Because the most important song Kelly Clarkson ever wrote wasn't really about one father, or one label, or one marriage. It was about learning, slowly, what it feels like when someone disappears on you in pieces, not all at once. Not with a clean break you can point to and grieve properly, just a little at a time, over years, until one day you look up and realize the person you trusted most has been gone for a while now, and you're only just now finding the words for it. And finally having the power to leave first. To see the fade coming. Name it out loud, and walk out the door yourself before it can quietly hollow out another decade of your life. That's the whole arc. Powerless child. Fighting artist. Finally, a woman who gets to choose. We'll see you in the next one.